Hello there, this is Melinda, and welcome to another episode of the Lit Lotus podcast. Lit Lotus is a podcast for healers, empaths, yogis, sensitive beings, spiritual beings, all those who are seeking holistic health alternatives and solutions for mind, body, and spiritual wellness. Lit Lotus is all about loving, inspiring, and thriving, and we are a community that does that together. As I just mentioned, I'm Melinda Van Kirk. If you haven't joined me before, welcome. I lead transformational journeys to find better health and wellness, all through self-care, self-love, and simple habit evolution. Simple is the key here. And this is all following the ancient wisdom of yoga and Ayurveda, as well as modern principles of habit change, as well as energy healing. So I kind of incorporate all the things that interest me in my life and how it's transformed my life. So welcome to the podcast. And if you joined me before, welcome back. This week, we are talking about self-care as your priority. So I know this is a word that's thrown around a lot, and it can have a whole lot of meanings, right? Self-care can be as simple as, taking a bath in the evening. Self-care can be just giving yourself 5 minutes in the morning. And those are all parts of self-care. It can also be getting a massage, getting your hair done, getting your toes done, like pampering yourself. So self-care can mean a whole lot of things. We're going to approach today, we'll talk a little bit about mindset, and I think that's what my podcasts usually focus on, and we might kind of reiterate some of the things I've talked about in the past. But really, I want to talk about mindset shift and embodying the practices. So let's start there. Let's start with the mindset. Self-care as a mindset. I have so many clients that come to me, and shifting the mindset is probably, I don't want to say it's the hardest thing, but it's the thing that's most effective in being consistent with your habit changes. So let me be clear about that. The consistency is there when you can shift your mindset. You can do the habit changes, but if you don't shift your mindset around things, a lot of times you might see those habit shifts begin to revert back. So I think that's why so many times in my podcast I talk about mindset shift, but today I really wanted to focus as well on embodying the practices. And I think the reason for this is that I've been seeing it a little bit maybe more lately, or feeling it in the energy in the air, of people that they've shifted the mindset in terms of I get it, I understand why I do these things, but they're not taking any action. And so if you're not taking any action, things aren't just going to happen. Or if you spend so long stuck in the mindset, and I've seen this with clients, they know they're stuck in the mindset shift. They're like, I get it, I see it, I just don't know why I'm not doing it. So what I do in my coaching is I encourage people, I give them visualizations, helpful tools, we'll journal, we'll write, and we'll talk about what it is that's holding you back. And then the next step is taking that action. And sometimes it's really, people get caught in the minutia of things and they don't ever take any action. It's almost that feeling of if I don't do it right or I don't do it full force, I'm not doing it at all. And I think that's easy to get caught up in that mentality. So what I want to encourage you today is to just help you find some simple steps to take action and helping you make those changes and finding ways when you make those little subtle shifts, those changes will stick. And the work is in doing the shadow work, exploring what's holding you back, and some people get it right away and they're like, I get this, I'm doing fantastic. And that's awesome. Some people have that very strong pitta energy. So they're full force at the beginning and then it falls off because they're doing the actions while they have someone at the very beginning when the motivation is high. And then they tend to fall off when it's like, oh yeah, I know I need to do that. But they had never changed the mindset around it. So the two go hand in hand, and really that's what today is about, mindset shift and embodying the practices. And so when people come to me, and this is something I've learned over the last few years as a coach, is that sometimes people are not ready to be coached. They might join my program, they're all in, and they love all the things we talk about, they love the support of the community, and yet the changes don't happen I don't even want to say the changes don't happen. The changes do happen. They don't give themselves enough credit, for one, because they're stuck in this low vibrational negative mindset that I haven't done anything, but really they've actually done a whole lot, and they just don't see it because they're stuck in this gap thinking. So we actually talk about that a lot. And if you've read Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy's book, The Gap and the Gain, you'll know what I'm talking about. But you really have to look at, you need to see the gap, but you really need to look at the gains that you've made. So that's one thing. But it's that coming with that attitude of, I don't see the gains and I can't seem to get past it. Those are the people that maybe aren't ready to join my group. Those are the people that are like still in victim mindset, and they need to make that mental shift to, I'm not a victim, I have a choice. And then making the actions or taking the actions aligned with this vision of who they are. And if they don't make that shift, it's never going to last. They're going to see periods of momentum and growth, and they're going to fall back. Now, that doesn't mean there's no growth. So I always like to, I don't have a graph I can show you clearly on a podcast, but if you think about a graph, people think it's this straight line trajectory and you're just going up, right? So let's say you start at this baseline level and you're just going to grow straight up at a diagonal. Or you could go straight down, right? If you're like on a bad trajectory going down. But the reality of it, it's not even an exponential curve. And I see that a lot. If you look at James Clear's, some of his diagrams, you see this lovely exponential curve. So it starts slow and then you skyrocket, which I love to think of that as being the case. And maybe it kind of gets there eventually. But I like to think of it as more of a mountain range and some foothills. So you're walking up the foothills at the beginning, and you might dip down a little bit, and then you're going up a little bit more and dip down. But eventually, you're not dipping all the way back down to sea level. You're still going up and up and up. And then eventually you're like up in the mountains and then you're at the peak. And not that there's no hopefully downfall on the other side of that. But to use that analogy is like, you don't see necessarily your gains because you're in this maybe small trajectory at first, or it's going really slow. And then sometimes you might see a few bigger gains and you feel like you've gone up, but then you go down a little. And so that's just the reality of making any changes in life, right? Like, we're never going to be perfect. That's not the point, to be perfect. This is an ongoing thing. And hopefully, as long as you're on this path of this habit evolution, you just keep going up and up and up. So the growth eventually will be exponential. But it's not a beautiful curve to get there, and it's not a straight line to get there. So sometimes when we think we're not doing something, we actually are. And we need to really take a look at our gains and stop looking at the gap all the time. We always feel the gap. There's always growth. I feel the gap. I'll be perfectly transparent. Christmas, I felt gluttonous that week between Christmas and New Year. I was on vacation. And it's not even that I made really poor meal choices, but there was cookies, homemade cookies. I don't usually eat them. I gorged myself on cookies. I came home. I was a few pounds heavier. I'm kicking myself. It's the things that many of us do, right? That this isn't even me. How did I let myself get to this? And for me, I think it was the stress of the holidays, and then it was just letting go, and maybe getting to the point that this is too much. It's fine to have a cookie every now and then, but not to just eat cookies and cookies and cookies. And I was actually really active, so that's a good positive thing, right? But I didn't see my gains. I didn't see that I went for 2 to 3 walks a day, and I rode the bike every day, and we were playing Wii, which maybe doesn't sound like much, but you're physically up and you're moving your arms. We're playing Wii on tennis. My forearm was sore from just moving my arm around. And so I wasn't really seeing those gains. I got stuck in the gap thinking, I'm eating all these cookies. I know I'm putting on weight. I get home and get on the scale. I start kicking myself, and I'm really pissed off at myself. How did I do this? How did I gain 4 pounds or whatever it was over the holidays? And we start kind of bringing ourselves down mentally, because all of a sudden we feel like we're unworthy, and it's back in an old victim mindset, old cycle, right? So what did I do? Yes, I had a few days of wallowing and feeling bad about myself. And I thought, well, what action can I take that's going to put me back into this gains thinking? One, I reflected on all the good things I did, how active I was, how nice it was to be outdoors. It felt good to be kind of stress-free for the week and not have any obligations, right? We could do whatever we wanted. We had no obligations. And that was amazing. So I actually, it's funny how we can take an amazing gains week and turn it into gap because we did one thing that felt like it wasn't right. But the difference is when I came home and I started assessing this, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm back in my gap thinking, I'm putting myself in victim mindset. And I'm not saying I'm blaming anybody else, but I'm blaming myself, and I'm kind of in that shame spiral is the better way to put it, as Brene Brown calls it. So we put ourselves in a shame spiral. We start going down the hole, and when you start going down that hole, it spirals, right? It goes down and down and down. And so it's really about kind of catching myself as I start to kick myself, because what good is that going to do? What good is guilt? What good is shaming myself for doing it? And even things like, oh, you're a health coach, you know better than this. And yes, I do know better than my reaction, but my behavior was stemming from something else. It was stemming from stress. And so, after I kind of did my journaling and assessed and saw all my gains, I'm like, so what do I need to do? You know what? I'm going to do 3 days of clean eating. And 3 days is very doable. And I was going to do like a soup cleanse and just have soup and kind of liquidy foods. And that's kind of what I've done for the most part. And they're still they're hearty soups, right? I have lentils and rice and things involved. It's not just tomato soup, right? And I decided it was going to be plant-based. So except for a little bit of ghee and maybe half and half one day, because I did have decaf yesterday. But really just for the most part, I feel very well cleansed. The only foods I've had this week, like no chocolate, no added sugar. So if I need sweetness, I'm using honey or maple syrup. So things along those lines, I feel actually really good. I'm on day 3 and I feel like I can keep going. And has my weight changed? Probably not. It's only been 3 days. Maybe by the end of this week it'll be better. But more important than the number on the scale is how do I feel in my body? And what is that doing for my mindset by taking those little actions? By saying for 3 days, I'm just going to have some soups. And then maybe, I did have one piece of bread one day and I'm like, that's okay. I needed something solid to put in my soup. It wasn't enough food for me. Last night I had some roasted broccoli with my soup. So I'm still making not horrible choices. And the bread was good quality bakery bread. It was delicious actually. But so I'm still making, I might not be on a full 100% soup diet, but the point isn't to be on a diet. It's to make these little changes that still feel comfortable for me. It's not a massive stretch from what I usually do, but it's like, okay, no chocolate this week, no candies for these 3 days. Sometimes I eat these little ginger candies, and it's literally just it's got a little sugar on the outside of it, but it's not anything major, a bite of chocolate, nothing major, but I'm just saying I'm not doing that this week. No caffeine outside of maybe green tea, and it feels really good. So here I'm only a couple days in. I've taken some really small steps, and it's shifted my entire mindset back to this high vibrational state. And so as I'm thinking about the people that I work with that maybe aren't in this high vibrational state, they're going into the shame spiral and they're self-sabotaging. And that's something that we all do. So it's really, really important for you to know the ways that you self-sabotage. Because you're not going to make these changes if your vibration is low. If you're in the shame spiral, the changes don't happen. And I think we can all appreciate that. Depression, we get depressed, we feel anxiety, we feel stress. It gets worse, and our bodies are in this level of stress. And I've talked about this, I think, in the last episode, where you're just holding on to weight because your nervous system is frazzled right now. And it's in this fight, flight, freeze mode where it's not going to release, right? It's not going to release the fat and the things in your body because it's holding on like it's going to starve itself to death, right? But that's not reality. And so to make these lasting changes, and we'll talk about the 3 mullahs or the ways we self-sabotage in just a moment. But the way we can make these lasting changes is taking those embodied action steps and prioritizing your self-care. So when you look at your calendar, you look at your schedule, you look at your life, you truly, truly, truly need to tell yourself that you are the most important person in your life. You are the priority. And I know that's really hard. And if you have little children, that's maybe not as easy to do. But your self-care is still a priority. Okay, you might have a 5-year-old at home. That's going to be number 1. And there's no way around it. And you can also find time to prioritize your self-care. You can find someone in your life, a friend, a partner, a parent, a sibling, another child, an older child, to help you. So you're like, I need to go take a bubble bath for 20 minutes. I need a nice, long, hot shower to just soothe myself, take some deep breaths, put on some fun music, and find a way to come back to you. And everything that I coach in my group is about self-care. Ultimately, it's self-care and it's self-love. So you have to learn to love yourself, teach yourself that you are enough, and do that shadow work to know that you're enough. You are a light being. You are here on this planet for a reason. If you are a healer, an empath, a sensitive soul, we are here with a purpose. We all have a purpose, right? Even if you're not a particularly empathic person or even empathetic person, that's okay. You still have a purpose. We all have a dharma. We all have a purpose. But I really personally like to address those that are kind of in this burnout phase, that are feeling like they're not seen. So as healers, caregivers, empaths, a lot of times we take on energy which isn't ours, and then we feel unseen. And if you're a projector like me, when you're not seen, you get this bitterness, right? You might, if you're a generator, you might get frustrated. So there's different ways we express that. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, go check out Human Design. It's amazing. But, you know, especially as projectors, we need to be seen, and that lights us up. So knowing that what we're here to do is tell our story and raise our vibration. And in turn, when you raise your vibration, when I raise my vibration, that has a ripple effect all around you. So when you are in a good mood and you walk into a room, that's going to light up the room. When you have that energy about you, people are like, I want to be around you because you are just making me feel better just by being in your space. And we all know that feeling of the person that walks in the room and it feels like the air has been sucked out of the room. And I know I've mentioned this before in one of my podcasts, but that feeling is like, oh my God, get me out of here. And if you're a sensitive soul, if you're a healer, you know it all too well, probably more than everybody else in the space. And that impacts your energy vastly. If you're in a space, in an environment at work where you feel completely burned out, or if you're a mom and you're completely burned out, you know that feeling. Your vibration is low. You can barely function. You can barely find food to put in your mouth. So going to McDonald's seems fine. It doesn't matter how awful it tastes because your energy and your vibration is so low that it's so hard to go and do the right thing. So when I bring people into my coaching group, I want them to really commit and say, I am committing to my self-care right now, and I'm ready to make these changes. And it doesn't require perfection, and it doesn't require 100% of your time and energy. It requires you to remember week after week after week, oh my gosh, yes, I am important, and to see your gains and to see your wins, and then to take that small little action. All right, so I'm going to talk briefly about the 3 malas. So in yoga, the word mala, M-A-L-A, is all about ways that we self-sabotage. Or how do we sink our own ship? And we all have ways, and I'm going to give you these 3 examples. And there might be ones that you're drawn to at certain times, or you might recognize in periods of your life. But there's probably going to be one right now that is a little more dominant for you than others. So if you happen to have a pen, grab it and write these things down. And I want you to reflect on how you self-sabotage. Because when you know how you self-sabotage, it all of a sudden becomes so much easier to see the self-sabotage. So the first one is Anava Mala. And Anava represents the heart. So it's all about the heart chakra and closing down the heart chakra. So if you are in this state of self-sabotage, you feel alone, you feel very unsupported, you might feel isolated or unsafe, you might be wallowing in self-pity, right? Woe is me, my life is so difficult. We've all been there. And I feel like all of these ways to self-sabotage, we've probably all experienced at one point or another. So when you're in those moments of self-pity, what do? We shut down and we don't reach out to others. We can only see the minutia of the life that we're in, what's right in front of us. This is definitely a victim mindset, right? So the question is, what do you do when you are in this state of self-sabotage? So when you're feeling your heart chakra closed off and you're feeling that pity for yourself, and for me personally, like this is definitely something I've been through in my life with periods of depression, and we don't reach out. And probably the thing that can help us the most when we're in this mindset is reaching out to somebody that we love, that we trust, a good friend, a family member, a spouse, a partner, whatever, and help us get out of our heads. And of course, I always suggest pairing that with a walk outside. A walk outside paired with any of these things is always going to help. It makes you more clear-headed and helps to reground you. So when you're having those moments of self-sabotage, if I can't make these changes, woe is me, my life is so awful, look what I've done to myself, I'm in this horrible victim mindset. When you get in that mindset, I need to reach out and talk to somebody. And there might be cases where you need to really talk to a mental health professional. And there's other times where you just need the support of a good friend or the support of your partner and say, I'm really struggling with this. Can I talk to you about it? And they don't even have to necessarily respond, but just having somebody there to listen is such a comforting thing. And they might be there to help you come up with some solutions too. If you feel like you're drowning in your life, that's a really hard thing. That's really challenging. And so you need someone there to not only listen and be a support, but also to say, how do you think you can help yourself get out of this? What can raise your vibration? How can I clear my heart chakra? Doing things like energy healing, like getting a Reiki session is such a tremendous help when you're closed off in any of these energy centers, because it might give you that clarity of thinking that you didn't experience before. So that is Anava Mala, A-N-A-V-A. The second one is Maya Mala. So this is the closing down over our third eye chakra. And this is the comparison self-sabotage model. So this might sound familiar when we feel envious of others, right? We're measuring, and there's nothing wrong with having that skill set to measure, but it's when there's like an emotion and a self-sabotage response connected to it that it becomes an issue, right? So it's not just being factual, like this is better or worse, this is my metric. It's not like that. It's more like, oh, they do this so much better than me, or I do this better than they do. So it's that critic that comes out. So you either get judgmental or you feel inferior. And this is very much connected to perfectionism. If you are a healer, projector, anyone that's very sensitive to others, any kind of empath, you are going to feel this perfectionism. I feel like you know what I'm talking about if you're hearing me right now. We have a very perfectionistic tendency because that's how we're brought up, and we can feel all those energies coming at us if we don't do it quote unquote right, and we'll feel inferior or like we failed. It's sort of that vata energy as well, right? So it's interesting because those of us in this space can be very high achievers and set ridiculous standards for ourselves. Right? It's not like, oh, this is good enough. No, it has to be perfect or I can't do it. I can't start the project unless I can do it perfectly. I'm not turning this in until it's perfect. And if it's not perfect, I'm going to sit here and beat myself up. I'm going to feel inferior. I'm going to judge myself. And then I might even judge others. Having been through art school, this is a really good example. I think that put me into this state because this is probably not my normal mala that I might go to, not my normal self-sabotage. But when I was in art school, every week, every class, we turned in a project. And I was in like 7 studios at once because I'd gone back to school, so I had all the other classes out of the way, and I was just taking studios, which is not a good idea because you just don't sleep very much because it takes so much time to do the projects. And every week, I would be up half the night, sometimes longer, sometimes all night. And I would get my project done for the week, and then we would put them up in class. And, I had my standard where I had to I'm going to stay up until this is done at least till I'm satisfied with it. And of course, there's always things you can do better. You're always looking at it. I wish I'd done this or that. But I'm like, okay, I'm satisfied with this project. And then we would put them all up on the wall, and the teacher would go through and critique all of our projects. And this is every class, every week. And I'm all about getting better. But to hear critiques all day long with every project that you do and you barely slept, it's a little hard on the system. And they induce this culture of judging. And I know it's to help you get better as a student. However, it also turns your self-esteem to shit. If you did a project that wasn't great, and I'll never forget this one class, and I was a good student in this class, and we had 2 projects due one week because we had gotten a week off, and one of them I didn't spend as much time on, and I thought it was good enough. He tore that project apart. He spent almost the entire critique time just talking about how wrong my project was, like the angles were off, the lighting was off. It was drawing shoes. Let me tell you that. I had to draw 3 shoes in 3 different angles. No one said this had to be realistic, and like, they weren't bad shoes. I like to draw shoes, but I didn't have the time. I spent a couple hours on it instead of like 6. I spent 2, and it wasn't good enough. And he ripped me a new one, and how awful my picture was. And let me tell you, talk about cultivating perfectionism and cultivating Maya Mala. That's it right there. So not to digress or go off on a tangent here, but what do you do when you're in that comparison mindset? When you are judging others or you are feeling inferior and like you're being judged, that is Maya Mala. That is the 3rd eye chakra shutting down. And so we tend to, when we feel critical of each other, what we really need is to support each other. So in Ayurveda, the opposite is what balances it, right? So when you're in the judgment mindset, you need to find a way to kind of level it out. So you need to connect. Also, shifting that mindset of perfectionism, you have to know that you're not perfect. We are humans having a human experience. We are not here to be perfect. And putting some metrics around what you're doing can really help as well. So if you have a goal and you're judging yourself for not meeting a goal, put some metrics around it. So for example, when I was in school, if I had just looked at my projects for the week and even tracked that over the course of the semester, how many times did you get a good critique? And one that was constructive, because in this case was not super constructive. It was at the beginning, and then it just turned to like, oh my God, he just spent 30 minutes talking about how bad my project was. That was just abusive at that point. And he was actually a really nice teacher, so I don't want to say anything bad about him, but it was just a bad moment. But that's the one thing you remember is the time you did it wrong, and I got called out on it in that moment. And every art student in school, and probably everyone in school, has those moments where a teacher just ripped them a new one. I mean, it is traumatizing. So, but if you look at the metrics of how many times did I get great critiques? How many times did I turn in a project that looked amazing? And really look at the metrics around it, then you can kind of be like, wow, I'm actually doing awesome. And I don't need to judge this person over here. Like, maybe I'm looking at their picture that week and I did a great job and they were like, oh, that doesn't look good. And maybe they had a horrible week and they were just barely getting by and they just had to turn something in to have a project done, right? So by giving yourself some metrics and connecting with people and sort of stepping out of your own shoes and putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and remembering that we're not perfect, that will help get you out of that mindset. So you just kind of need to relax and drop the judgment and enter that field of connectivity, that field of expansiveness, and let go of the judgment and just honor what you've done and honor that someone else, what someone else may have done, and release that judgment. I used to be really bad about that, and I think it was definitely cultivated by university environment, by college environment. It can be a little bit rough. And every art student will tell you a story about the time that the teacher ripped them a new asshole. I'm just going to say it because we remember those moments instead of honoring all the amazing moments and all the great work that we did. All right, the 3rd mala is called karma mala. And we all know the word karma. And it's probably not in the traditional sense of what we think, because the word karma itself really just means action. So when we say, oh, karma, it's bad karma, or karma's coming to get you, that's really not how it works. The word karma itself just means action. Karma mala is connected to your solar plexus or your third chakra. And that's a space just above your belly button. When you get hungry, a lot of times you can feel the solar plexus that's your Agni, your digestive fire. You can feel it turn on right there, just below the low ribs. And a lot of times people will feel like their instinct right there, feel it in their gut, right? So this is your third chakra, and karma mala means not taking action. So you're not empowered. Your third chakra is all about personal power and feeling empowered. So when karma mala is what you're experiencing, you are not taking any action. You're failing to take action. You're not participating. You're not interacting. So like in a group setting, they're the quiet ones in the corner that are kind of lurking. They might be unorganized and just like, oh, I couldn't do it because I had 10 excuses, right? Oh, I couldn't do that. I had all these things going on. But at the end of the day, it's like you're just really failing to take any action. So in my group, if someone's going through that, it's the person that's mindset that says, mentally, I get it. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I understand it. I know all this is good for me. And yet I'm not taking action. So they're either not participating on the calls, they're not doing any of the things they want to be doing, and they're kind of going down the shame spiral as well. So this is, there's some similarities between this and Anava Mala, where the heart chakra is closed down, but this is our solar plexus that's closed down. Procrastination is a good example of this. So the person that waits to the last minute and shows up unprepared, because you're not in your personal power, right? And you're not taking action. So what do you need more than anything else? You need to take the smallest action possible. For example, I want to eat healthy. I know I need to be cooking for myself. I know this isn't right. And I really, really want this. I just don't know how to get past the mindset of making a healthy meal. And step one is you need to make this something that's fun. So for me, I like to put music on, or I listen to a good podcast. And if I'm in a really shit mood, it's got to be music. It's got to be high vibrational music. Someone told me the Bee Gees music had this frequency to help raise your vibration. And I absolutely love the Bee Gees. So when she told me that, I was like, yes. So if I'm in a bad mood, if you put on some Bee Gees, if you like that kind of music, I highly recommend it. Put on More Than a Woman and dance around the kitchen and chop yourself some vegetables for lunch, okay? So whatever it is. But you need to take some kind of action. So maybe I'm going to cut up some vegetables for tomorrow's lunch, and that's the whole action. I'm going to cut up some carrot sticks or celery sticks or whatever it is you like to snack on. Actually, I've been cutting up fennel the last couple of weeks. For some reason, it's been tasting absolutely amazing. So instead of grabbing cheese, I'm trying to grab fennel, and I have it just cut up in a little container in the fridge, and I can just pull it out, grab a few pieces, and snack on those. Just cutting up that fennel bulb, that takes like 5 minutes, and I put it in a Tupperware and put it in the fridge. Like, that's a small action. And then I can grab that next time instead of the cheese out of the drawer. So that's a small action step. It didn't take much planning. It didn't take much time. And sometimes you just have to pick yourself up, say, no, I don't want to do this. I'm going to put on the Bee Gees and cut up a fennel bulb for 5 minutes, all right? It sounds absolutely crazy, but you might find that gave you enough of a lift that all of a sudden you're feeling, I'm ready to do the next action. In my group, I always recommend tongue scraping every morning. So that's another example of taking the smallest, easiest action. Get out your tongue scraper in the morning and scrape your tongue. The end. No, nothing to think about. If you can't remember to do it, put it on your countertop until you remember to do it. Put it in your cup by the sink until you remember to do it. Then you won't forget, right? It's right in front of your face. It's right there. When you get up in the morning, I'm going to go to the bathroom and I'm going to scrape my tongue and brush my teeth. And it sounds so silly, but for me, it's very satisfying. I know some people don't love it. But it's such a good benefit, Ayurvedically speaking. You can see all the gunk on your tongue. It helps you assess your health. It lets you look at the color of your tongue to know how your diets and stress and things are impacting your health. And it's something that changes, so it's a nice daily check-in, how's my tongue look today? How's what am I taking off my tongue in the morning and getting all that gunk out of your body, ridding yourself of ama from the night's sleep. And you're doing the smallest thing. Okay, so that is more or less what I have for today. I would absolutely love to hear if this resonates for you, and what is your way that you self-sabotage? So if you happen to have a pen or paper, or even just thinking about it, is it Anava Mala? Is it the shutdown self-pity? Is it Maya Mala, where you're comparing, criticizing, judging? Or is it Karma Mala, where you're doing nothing and you are not taking any action at all and you are just totally stuck? And once you sort of figure that piece out, then you're going to be able to say, what is the medicine for this? What is the medicine for this? And then whatever it is, you can take that action. So if you're in Anava Mala, once again, you're going to reach out to anybody to get support. Just reach out. Hey, I'm not feeling great. Can you talk to me for a few minutes? Judgment phase, you're going to put metrics around it. And then you're going to see if you can step out of your own shoes and have a little bit of an empathetic mindset. So whether you're judging others or yourself, put yourself in somebody else's shoes, even your best friend's shoes. What your best friend say to you, what you're saying to you right now? Is this an accurate assessment, or are you just being overly critical? So, take that step back. And then, of course, Karma Mala, take the very smallest action to put you on the right trajectory. So if you're feeling like shit because you're drinking too much, and you're like, I really want to stop drinking, I just can't seem to stop. What's the smallest action? Okay, next time I want to pour a glass of wine, before I have that wine, I'm going to have a cup of tea and then see if I still want it. So you're not even saying no to the wine, right? In the immediate sense, you are just saying, not yet. Same with coffee, right? Maybe you're trying to break a coffee habit. Okay, coffee, I might still have you. However, first, I'm going to have something that's good for me and then see how I feel and see if I still want this thing. Because sometimes it's just the habit of doing it. I've been doing that with sugar this week, trying to not add any granulated sugar. Have I cut it out completely? Nope. I still have honey a little bit. I still use a little maple syrup in my cooking. If I'm making oatmeal or whatever. And that's okay. I don't feel like I'm beating myself up. Am I taking a spoonful of sugar and dumping it on my hot cereal? No. So I actually feel pretty good about the steps I'm taking. Or I really want that cup of coffee. Okay, I want to have a green tea first and then see if I want the coffee. Because often, after I have the tea, I don't want the coffee. Sometimes I do. And then, guess what? I have the cup of coffee. So it's not saying no. It's saying, yes, I can have this, but first I'm going to do this other thing because this is the right action, and then I'll have the coffee or I'll have the wine if I still really feel like it. But most of the time you're going to find that you've disrupted this pattern and you don't actually want the thing. And if you do have it, don't beat yourself up. Start again. Wait till the next time you have that craving and address it one at a time. All right, I've talked quite a bit today. I hope that this episode has been really helpful for you, help you recognize how you self-sabotage, ways to take action, and again, that mindset shift around prioritizing your self-care, embodying the practices, and they go hand in hand. You can't just do one and you can't just do the other. You really need to bring them both together. And if you would like to learn more about what I do, learn more about my coaching groups, I have my new website finally officially up and running. I'm giving myself a huge pat on the back. It is litlotus.me. It's not 100% there. The shop page is not exactly up to speed, but that's okay. There's enough on there and most of the information is accurate. And if you would like to learn more, there's a link in there. You can click to book a discovery call or to fill out an online application if you want to know more about joining the Living Inspiration Tribe. That is my women's group. And I also offer one-on-one spiritual lifestyle and health coaching. And there's different packages there. So you can book a call with me and we can talk about what your goals are, what might be a right fit for you, if it's a right fit. If not, what might be a better fit for you. So I've had clients that came in and I'm like, I think you really just need some energy healing. And they're like, yes, that's exactly what I need. So, everyone's at different stages of their life. And I would be happy to just help you kind of find what will help you heal yourself. And yeah, I hope this speaks to you. If you like the podcast, please go and rate it. Give me a lovely review if you wouldn't mind. And share this with your friends. Spread the word, and it's truly helping me to grow my business, and it's such a beautiful exchange of energy when we can do that. So thank you again so much for joining today. Take care, all of my friends out there listening. I hope you found this beneficial today, to all my projectors, empaths, yogis, healers, spiritual beings, everyone who's joining holistic health peeps. And please reach out on my website if you want to learn a little bit more. And I will talk to you next time on the Lit Lotus podcast. Have a great day.